here, and we're the Empowering Growth Project. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Just John and Bear and Alex and Lisa, and together, like I said, we're the Empowering Growth Project. And today we're going to talk about consistency, about how important it is to be consistent in everything you do, especially if you're starting something new. And anything that you're going to do, if any kind of service or any kind of if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be consistent. People have to know that they can rely on you. It'd be like if you went to the grocery store and every time you went, you weren't sure if they're going to be open or not. You're like, or if you're going to go somewhere to buy something, you always want to be able to count on the place being open. And that's the number one thing in any business, is to be consistent, have consistent hours. And when people know that they can see you and get what they need from you. So with that, we'll open it. So Bear, what do you think about being consistent here?
For me, it's huge. And I'll kind of go from a social media perspective. For me, over the years, for many years, I would write posts like almost on a daily basis, and I would end each post, or at least once a day in my posts, I would say, create a fantastic day. This year, it's kind of morphed into create a fantastically awesome day. And it's great because over the years, people will then start messaging me and they'll be like, hey, have a great day, or create a fantastic day, or whatever form they want to put it in. And it's such a huge piece, because there was a period in 2017, 2018, where I actually deactivated my Facebook account. Oh, wow. Just like disappeared, like ghosted the world, right? Oh, I didn't really ghost the world, but I just deactivated my account. And it's actually really interesting, because in that year that I was off, I lost like 125 friends or whatever in that year. But I had so many messages like waiting for me when I reactivated my account. They were like, where'd you go? We miss your daily motivation, your daily inspiration. And so that consistency piece is huge. And fast forward to now, at the beginning of this year, I made a commitment that I would do something on video every single day, whether it's a reel, whether it's my personal Monday Minutes that I do, or my Fantastic Friday training, whatever it is, to be on video every single day in 2023. And I've done that. And the interesting thing is as I've done that, like my views on my reels and whatnot have sometimes skyrocketed. If you look at some of my videos, like the beginning of the year, I think I had 58 views or something like that. And I'm like, yay, let's go for 100. And then I had my first one that was 100. I was like, yay, let's go for 500. And then I had one that was 3,000. I'm like, oh my goodness. But it's because of that consistency and people seeing it. And so then all of a sudden the follower count goes up, all of those different things. Where if I just did it sporadically, I have another Instagram account where I do things sporadically, and I think there's like 14 followers on there. And it's because there's nothing there for them to follow on that consistent basis. So yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, awesome. I agree. I agree with that. I love how you brought it into the social media side of it, right? And like the building of the business, and like the building of anything that you're building, right? It's going to take consistency of like the build process of creating it, and then having it come to fruition, and then you have to care for it, right? So it's like that consistency of like then the scale and growth of that business and the growth of your impact. And it's just super important to like have that as your mindset. Like I love that you chose to do every day this year, right? I think that's like super fun and a great challenge. I like that. That's like, for me, that would be a stretch. And then it's like, yes, that's a good stretch. Maybe not the easiest one, but that's a good one. And so I love that you chose that. And I do have to say, you show up with such good energy that in all of your posts, it's amazing. I'm like, it's whenever I see Bears, when I'm scrolling, I'm like, yes, I love this. This is amazing. It's awesome. I think keep doing that for sure.
I think one of the things that has helped me when it comes to consistency is thinking of like, how long do you want this to take? Like at the end of the day, if you're building something, if you're starting a new business or you're scaling a business, you definitely don't have to be consistent. You can do it sporadically, right? Like that's an option that some people take. But if you're doing like an hour here and then an hour every 2 months, and then maybe in 3 months, you'll do another hour or two, like just depending on how you feel, how long is that going to take to get the same outcome as if you just did an hour every day or an hour every second day, like whatever it is. But just finding a routine, a sequence kind of that you can stick to that works for you also, like not being unrealistic, because again, I think that that's not helpful, but something that you're going to be able to follow through on and sticking to it. Because again, like it's just at the end of the day, it's how long do you want this to take? Like that was really the case in my business when I was really like building it. And I was working like 80 hours a week, and sure, like it was crazy, and you definitely don't have to do that. But for me, it was a matter of, I want this to be as quick as possible. So I'm going to just go all in now that I can, so that I can see the results sooner rather than later.
Well, and to touch on that too, I think, Tony Robbins is famous for saying most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade or two, right? And it's so true, but because that consistency creates momentum. I remember 15 years ago, I was in a network marketing company, and in this network marketing company, one of the things they always preached was hand out 2 CDs a day. Now, for those of you younger people out there in the world, a CD is this little disc. No, but really that was the thing, because, it had all the company overview and everything else on it. It wasn't all digital and just go online and check it out. But the consistent piece was hand out 2 a day. Mm-hmm. Don't wait until Saturday and hand out 14, hand out 2 a day, because like you were saying, Alex, an hour here, an hour there, or a lot of times we're like, okay, we'll wait until the weekend and then we'll just overload it with all of the work that we need to do. Mm-hmm. And what often happens is then something comes up for the weekend, right? And we may have been able to give an hour on the weekend where we had planned on doing 7, but oh my gosh, something fun came up, or an emergency came, whatever the case is. And so allowing ourselves to be consistent with those things, instead of like trying to bank it up and then be like, okay, I'm going to cover it all this weekend. Yeah. Let's be honest. Has it ever really happened? Have we given those 7 hours or handed out those 14 CDs or, whatever? We usually don't, right?
Yeah, I just kind of flashed in my head. It's kind of like you brush you brush your teeth, you take care of yourself, you have these habits. And if you're consistent on this too, it'll become a habit. And it's like nobody ever brushes their teeth for like, I'm not going to brush my teeth all week, so I'll just brush my teeth for like 35 minutes on one day on Saturday just to make up for
once
it.
A week.
Yeah. Whether I need it or not. Yeah.
I think if you're inconsistent like that with your dental care, I don't think it's as good as if you do it like every day just for a short period.
Yeah, that's a great example.
But your dentist will like you though.
Yeah.
Hey, you'll be consistently going to the dentist.
Oh, for sure.
Or having tooth pain. That's the other option, is tooth pain, right? So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like the growth pain too, right? Like you're like that frustration if you're not being consistent, right? Mm-hmm. I will say that personally, for like my own growth, since we're on the Empowering Growth Project, the consistency for my growth has been implementing habits and doing daily habits and really tracking them, like really I have like a month that I track, a week that I track, and a day that I track. And really doing that has been the thing that's made, like, that consistency has made my growth exponential. It has, when I get up in the morning and I read my reading for 20 minutes, that game changer in my mindset. And just the act of doing that has like jet propelled my entire ability to function, my ability to focus, to actually think and come up with the planning, right? Like in order to plan. And one thing that it kind of touches on also with the idea of planning. And I heard one of my coaches this week talking about how he says, how people say, well, I'm not good at like keeping myself, like self-discipline. I'm not good at following through. And he's like, it's not that you're not good at following through. You just don't have a plan. The thing is that like, you have to at least say like 1, 2, 3. These are my 3 steps that I got to do. I want to lose weight. I got to do these 3 things, right? I want to do XYZ. I got to do these 3 things. And having that, one, subconsciously already gets your brain going. So like, if you want to actually be able to achieve something, you've got to plan that out, right? And so then, since we're talking about consistency, it's really so important to plan out habits and to really have those daily habits that you're tracking. And by tracking it, now you're giving yourself little dopamine hits also every day, which is better than being on social media getting the dopamine hits. So it is better to like have that in your plan. And that has really been, for me, the growth, having that consistency has been insane. Just even in the last, I would say the last 3 years have been pretty intense that way. And it's monumental growth. It's amazing. And it's amazing how much happier you can feel and how much more progress you can have and how much more focus and intention and all of that. So yeah, I love that whole idea. And I think that that's awesome that you guys brought that all up too, right? That it's about that, that consistency and that really the outcome, right? It was like what's the outcome? I want to do it faster. I want to actually achieve this, right? Like the other thing about achievement is if you have a lot of motivation and you have a lot of drive to do something, you have a 50% chance of achieving it. That's only 50%. Now, to achieve it, you probably do have to have the motivation, right? So that is a necessity, but it's not going to get you to the achievement. So in order to get to achievement, it's how do you put into place those habits that give you the consistency, that make it possible for you to show up and see the things and do and what you want to do. So yeah, I love that. That's why I love the commitment part that you said, like, I'm going to do this every day. That's the plan, right? Putting in the plan, doing things. Oh, I love it.
Well, and the thing is too, is when you're consistently moving toward whatever goal it is that you've set yourself or set for yourself, then it does become easier to find those different things to move you toward that goal. And it's really interesting because if you have, say you have a goal to listen to positive audio or, some kind of personal development audio, 20 minutes a day, and you do it 20 minutes a day for a month, tracking your progress, like you said, because I heard years ago, you have to inspect what you expect, right? You have to measure what it is that you're expecting. And it's one of those things though, that 20 minutes a day, if you look at it over a 30-day period, that's 10 hours closer to your goal. At the same time though, if you take those 20 minutes and get distracted and listen to something else, I'm a big audiobook fan. But what's interesting is that if I listen to a Brendon Burchard book or Tony Robbins or Simon Sinek or, anyone in the personal development realm, if I consistently listen to them on audiobooks, I find my progress moving forward toward what I want. If I listen to a military spy thriller or something like that, that's entertaining, but it's not moving me toward my goal, and I can feel myself actually slipping further away from my progress and further away from my goal. And while you were talking, actually, when you brought up motivation, it reminded me of a quote that Zig Ziglar used to use, or used to say, and it was, people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. And I always loved that one, but because it's true. Daily, consistent action and habits toward moving toward your goal will get you where you want to be. And if you're moving away from your goal, then it's up to you to kind of do that self-check and be like, hey, you know what? I know I've been listening to these other books and that I've been using, and I find myself doing this, instead of saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to go back to the 20 minutes a day. Now I can still listen to some of those other audios when I'm driving, but I need to make it that habit, that consistent habit to do 20 or 30 minutes a day of dedicated personal development.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like one of the things that can be, if you know that you have certain pitfalls when it comes to like temptations or things that will distract you from following through. I once heard a podcast episode, I forget whose it was now, but they were saying like the highest achievers, it's not that they have an insane amount of discipline. Like they do have discipline, but what they also have is the ability to remove temptations, distractions where they know their pitfalls are going to be. So for example, if you are, I'm just going to say, if you're writing a book, for example, and you're finding that you're getting distracted constantly with social media, or you're going in to check Facebook 28 times a day instead of writing the first chapter of your book.
Only 28.
Yeah, so that was my thought.
Like, maybe more like 600, but maybe like something that will be helpful is and so actually, sorry, I can't remember whose podcast this was, but one of the things that they were suggesting is that they would actually eliminate all the apps from their phone, like Monday to Friday, and then re-download them on the weekend. And like this person went so far as to even give his secretary his phone or his assistant his phone and be like, please change the password on all of these apps and don't give me the password until Saturday or Friday evening when I've finished my work week. Like if you, I mean, that's like going a little extreme, but again, if you know where your pitfalls lie and you know that you're going to end up falling back into the distraction or into the temptation, and you know, okay, these are the things where I tend to stumble. There's nothing wrong with asking for help or asking for accountability from a partner or a friend or, you know, someone who's actually going to hold you to it and say like, no, you said you weren't going to do that right now, so let's not do that.
Yeah, it's huge. And actually, when you brought that up, there's an author that I have all of his books. He's a former Navy SEAL, writes this military thriller stuff. Just had a TV series produced on Amazon Prime as a result from his first book. Anyway, Jack Carr is his name. And he actually, every book that he writes, he buys a new laptop. And the only thing that goes onto that laptop is his book. So when he's researching or doing anything like that, he uses a different device, you know, when he's researching his next chapter, you know, or topics or whatever. But then the only thing that goes onto that laptop is the book. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, laptops can get really expensive, but understanding the principle behind it though, of this is that dedicated piece that only the thing that I'm working on is going on to this. And when I heard that, I was like, that's pretty impressive. I love that idea because it forces you to eliminate those distractions like you're talking about, Alex. And I love it.
Yeah, I use on my phone, I do have an app that monitors my time. And I did put that into place for myself because even though I'm pretty good, like my phone has none of the notifications on. And I definitely have it on silent. So I'm not like, because I do work very hard on being in like my block time, right? To really being able to sit down and focus on one thing, because especially with a very large project like what I've been building, it's very important to be able to like focus on this. And that's where that consistency piece comes into play, right? Like you got to have consistency in each of the aspects of the business in order to grow the entire thing. So it's really taking that action and turning the notifications off on my phone and really putting it away. And even at night, I don't sleep with the phone near me anymore. And that helps me sleep better. So it's like that consistency, once again, of like those practices, those are the ones that I found for myself really changed the game. I mean, went from, I was stressed out with really bad headaches and unable to focus to I feel very healthy and I am very focused and dedicated and can really, my production level has gotten very high, right? Like I can sit down and execute so much in a short period of time because of those habits and because of that consistency of like, okay, phone away. You need to go away. I cannot be distracted. So,
well, yeah, you have to. Otherwise, you're just reacting to every time your phone pings or every little thing that comes up. Like I recommend everyone should have their notifications for social media silenced.
Yeah.
There's really no reason, if you think like there's no reason really why you should be getting notifications for like Facebook, Instagram, like all these apps directly on your phone. Like I don't understand it. I don't think it's necessary at all. It's a huge distraction if every time your phone pings, you're reacting to check, even if it's just 2 seconds, like you've already shifted gears from whatever you were doing to go and check. And that constant like yo-yoing back and forth is just screwing up your productivity. And really like the time that I do go in to check social media, it's like a dedicated for that, like, you know, like I'm gonna go in and check all my messages and get back to people, and that's it. The people that need to contact me immediately for whatever purpose, they have my cell phone number and they'll reach me there. Otherwise it can wait.
I was actually just looking down because I realized that for some reason I've always had my Instagram notifications on. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need that. So I literally just shut my notifications.
Oh wow.
Because even when I get the notifications, I'm like, I don't even look at like what that notification is. But Lisa, you were talking about it. I used to keep my phone on my nightstand and there would be buzzes throughout the night. You know, it's on silent and everything, but then it would buzz. And then I wake up and I've got a bunch of Instagram notifications. So yeah, now I'm like, okay, they're off. So yeah, we're good. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
That's true. And then is there, well, having grown up without all this, and then now it's like, oh, can I turn it off? But yeah, it's not like you're gonna like not be here if you turn it off, or you know, I mean, I always tell this story. I forgot my phone one time and I was driving my son to the airport and I was like panicking. What if I break down? What if I do this? And I'm like, you grew up, there was no phone. You didn't have any navigation. You didn't have anything, and you did fine. And now you're freaking out. I mean, you even met your friends at the mall or a concert or something, like, oh, we'll meet you there. Okay, where are you going to be? And you like looked for them, and are they here yet? And you couldn't call them or anything. And it's like we're so trained. We're trained by the phone, basically.
Well, you somehow figured it out before, right? Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But I ask my wife all the time because we drive like all the time. We went up to Idaho this last weekend to spend some time with my granddudes, and we'll be talking about it. And I'll be talking about like a trip to Disneyland that my dad took me on for the exact 30th anniversary of Disneyland, right? And I'm like, holy crap, that was in 1985. How did he know how to get there? I mean, like honestly, right?
Yeah.
And he was a truck driver. Yeah, but he was a truck driver too, and so occasionally he drove a meat truck. And so he was going to new towns and new stores, you know, because the sales guys were always doing their thing, bringing in new business and everything. And my dad had to find these stores. And I remember going through the road atlas and you know, we had the big giant road atlas that you get at the gas station for $7.99 or whatever. And we had all of those. But I'm like, how did he do that when he was driving the semi? Because I never saw him pull out the atlas, right? Like it wasn't like he just put it up on the steering wheel. It was like, okay, we need to go left here. He never did any of that. And I remember learning how to drive before GPS. And I swore I'd never use or need GPS. And now I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But it's like, oh, I haven't had a paper atlas for like 15 years. Yeah. But that goes back to the consistency piece, right? Because I've been consistently, even the cell phone providers, the largest wireless network. But why does it feel like this has the longest leash in the world attached to it? It's wireless, but it feels like it has this giant leash attached to it that we just keep boomeranging it back.
Right.
But we've consistently trained ourselves. Yep. Now we rely on GPS because it's easy, it's efficient, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, oh my gosh, what happens if there's a giant EMP burst tomorrow?
Oh yeah.
And all of our electronic devices go down. What do we do?
I won't be able to go to the grocery store because I don't know how to drive there because I use Waze. No.
Yeah, right.
But every time you go somewhere on a vacation or something, you use Waze, it's like the same. You're driving there for 5 days, but you never remember anything because it's all turn left, turn right, turn left.
Yep.
And you just turn your brain off.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's funny is I'm so visual, I can't turn my brain off that way. So it's very interesting because even if I watch something, I'm so visual that like my orientation is very good, like physically that way. Mm-hmm. What you guys are talking about reminds me about when I was traveling. So I went, I left the day before September 11th for a trip around the world and by myself with a backpack. And that I didn't have a cell phone. I had
Oh,
email.
no cell phone?
I would go to the like internet cafe and log into
Right.
the email. And so it was just reminding me of like, yeah, think of all the time that I spent traveling around the world. Like I didn't have like the GPS in my hand, you know. I got in the taxi and was like, take me. And I had I didn't have a plan when I first landed in Costa Rica. I didn't really like, I had a book that like a travel book. And on the plane, I was like, okay. And so I land, I find this taxi guy, and now I've got these surfboards, and this is the first time traveling with surfboards, right?
You
And
haul surfboards too?
I had,
You
oh yeah, I
hauling
had,
surfboards?
oh yeah, and he like, the guy takes it and shoves it in the top of the taxi. I'm like, oh, my board, like, oh no. So I get into the taxi, and we're like going, and we're sitting in traffic, and I'm reading. I was like, oh no, I need to go to this place instead. So halfway to where we're going, I'm like, can we go somewhere else? Can you take me there? Like, yeah, sure, no problem. But it's just funny because I was just thinking about like how different that was without the cell phone, right? Like without the GPS.
Yeah.
I survived. I made it around the world and back.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's amazing. You know, my first job, it was at a Pizza Hut, and I was delivering pizzas at this Pizza Hut, and we had an entire wall of just the city map. And
Oh,
so
wow.
we would get an order, and we would have to learn the map of the city where we were going on this delivery before we left the store. And we didn't have a cell phone to call the store and be like, hey, I think I got made a wrong turn. And so
Right.
it was, you literally had to trust yourself and your map reading abilities to get to where you needed to be. But again, it was building those consistency muscles, those habit muscles, because then it's like, okay, I know based on these numbers, it's going to be on this quadrant. I know based on these numbers that it's going to be on this side of the street versus that side of the street. And just learning all of those things. But it goes back to what John said at the very beginning. If you're starting something new, it's incumbent upon you to find some of those little shortcuts, to find some of those little hacks. And you do that through consistent repetition, learning which ways work for you, which little shortcuts work for you, and which ones don't. You know, usually if somebody came over and was like, hey, you know, this shortcut worked really well for me, I'm like, okay, that doesn't work for me. And likewise, we'd get a new driver and it's like, hey, you know, I try this, and this is how I remember that, you know, on the left side of the street in this quadrant of town, the numbers are on the left side, and on the right, you know, and the even numbers are on the left side, and odd numbers are on the right side of the street. But then if you get to Center Street, you got to flip them around. It just, all of those things. And they're just looking at me like, what in the world are you talking about? I'm like, okay, you got to figure it out for yourself, because this way works for me. It might not work for you, but the only way to get there is through that consistent repetition and building those muscles.
Yeah.
Right, and
And,
everything we're doing is, and it takes time, and it's not easy. It's like,
Mhm.
I mean, everything that we're trying to do, it's like you went to the gym for the first time and you're like, oh, I want to build up my muscle, you know, and do this. Okay, well, you're gonna have to push, you're gonna have to sweat. No, I
Yeah.
don't want to sweat. Can't I
Yeah.
just eat the ice cream and watch the other people sweat?
Right,
And
right,
they're like,
yeah.
no, you're not gonna look like them. Well, why not? Because they're putting in the hard work. And
Mhm.
you just want the magic pill or the
Yeah.
little inflatable suit that's gonna make you look like them underneath your clothes, but you're not, it's not the same.
Yeah, you're not gonna be benching 250 on your
No,
first session at the gym when
Mhm.
you've been at a computer your entire life.
but
Let's be
I
honest,
want 50
not
million
likely to happen.
subscribers on my YouTube channel, but I don't wanna have to suffer through all the work that those guys who have those viewers, the
Right.
time that they put, the consistency that they did.
Mhm.
I heard Ed Milet say that, you know, hey, it's like somebody wrote, hey, he goes, hey, brother, are you feeling lonely? He's all, you're on the right path. Do you have no friends? You're on the right road. Is there nothing but broken down cars on this road? There's no like people speeding by. Yeah, you're at the right place. Yeah, you got to do that work,
Yeah.
you know, but it's not like easy, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
You gotta
There's a framework that Brendan Burchard has this daily fire on his app, Growth Day. I know I've talked about it a few times, but he dropped a framework this week that I think is very poignant to what we're talking about. And it's also very helpful if you really do want to make a change. And the framework is called Change is Near. and NEAR is the acronym. And N stands for notice. So notice how you feel, notice what's going on around you, notice what is the reality, right? And then the E is for evaluate. Evaluate how that's going in your life and evaluate how things are working. You know, he talks about like the scientific process. And I know, Barry, you were just saying like, you got to do it again and try a little bit and try different, right? So it's a scientific process. Well, that process requires the action of doing the things, right? To be perfect, one actually has to perfect through action of perfection, right? And through action of doing the thing.
Through imperfection.
Not perfectly, yeah, not perfectly in order to figure out what is the right way, right? So, so that evaluating how that's going. And then A is for act boldly. So it's to take those steps, like, and you know what the steps are. You know, like if it's once again is coming up with a plan, right? Like these 3 things have to happen for me to achieve X, Y, Z. I'm gonna take bold action, right? And then the R stands for recalibrate. And Brendan said recalibrate, recalibrate, recalibrate daily. And I will tell you that for me, that's one of my habits that I talk about a lot when I talk on habits. And it's that recalibration is what was the game changer for me, from going from like real overwhelm of kind of like, I had an idea of a business, it was kind of vague and there was a lot going on. And I would set a goal and I was not able to attain said goal because my timeline was not really practical, let's just say. So it's in learning how to recalibrate what my thought process is. Still the same aim, but that recalibration is key. So if you're struggling with any of this, if you're struggling with habits, if you're struggling with even having that clarity of what you're doing, it's the idea of putting into practice consistently things that work for you, right? Like finding those little things that make it move the needle for you and really implementing them and really stacking the habits so that you can actually continue it for a long period of time. So I just thought dropping that framework would be helpful. I know that for me, I was like, yes, I really like to think of that. I really love the recalibration part because that's been the game changer for me. So yeah.
Well, and with that being said, let's talk about consistency for you, Lisa, because you are have launched something through your consistent habits. Talk about that.
Yeah.
What do you got going on?
All right, so I've been building a media company called the Dark Horse Project. And one of the products of the Dark Horse Project is Dark Horse SaaS. And it is a marketing platform that helps entrepreneurs, creators, educators to have their websites, do their marketing automation, send their emails, to go their follow-ups, their leads, their CRM, and the social networking side of it as well, like being able to create posts and getting all of that. So we just recently launched that on Friday. It's starting to, we'll roll out for like the next 3 weeks. I know, super excited. It has been a lot of work. It has been a bunch of teams and quite some time in putting things together to make it come together, but I'm super excited to offer that. And also SaaS services. So like branding, if you have like a small business and you want your website with some sales funnels and the ability to be on Google Business and your SEO tracking and all that ranking, we also have services that help build that for your business with consistency. Because if you're not doing it yourself consistently, it's going to be very hard to drive that traffic to your website, which means that you will not be having customers consistently showing up, right? And the game of that is to, if you want to serve people, if you want to be able to help inspire others, impact lives, and provide good services. Even Henry Ford, that I just recently read his book, all about service. The whole thing is about service. Even in building the car, right? It's all about that service. So if you want to be able to provide service to people, you have to get them to your store. You have to get them to your website. You have to be ranking when somebody searches. And really, I think it's Dean Graziosi talks about it a lot. Like, okay, if you're selling a service and somebody else is selling the same thing, well, if you don't actually promote yourself, if you don't actually get out there, then the other person that is doing not as good a service is not going to take care of your customer as well, is going to get the customer. So it's super important for, and especially I think like as an entrepreneur, I have been in the tech side of things for a very long time, a computer company and all of that. So the platform is really built around the idea of like helping that entrepreneur. Like you can actually get a free account that allows you up to 5 sites or websites and or sales funnels. And that includes the hosting, the SSL, all of the that side of things. And you can send emails to large numbers of users. And so there's also going to be a community aspect of that. So if anybody needs help with, if they want to do DIY, do it yourself, or if you want to have us help you, but there's also a community so that you can also work with other people that are on the platform promoting their business. And of course, we'll have different training and in different ways that we can support the customer, because the idea is to help businesses scale. And I have a passion for the entrepreneur. I have a passion for the startup, that solopreneur that's like, I've got this idea, I want to do this thing. There's a lot to this. So the idea is to empower people to be able to take those steps and be able to get their business off and launched. And then we can scale up to enterprise level. So fully automated and everything.
Nice.
So yeah, so I'm super excited. It's called Dark Horse SaaS. You can see a lot more information and we'll put it in the link of this, but Dark Horse Digital Media is the best website to go to. There are multiple websites you can find me on, but that one will give you a little bit more about like all of the different services that we provide, the production and marketing side as well. So yeah, super excited. Thanks, Bear, for asking about that. Yeah, a lot of work.
Yeah, we're excited.
Well,
for you. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, because that's a true testament to consistency, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what we've been talking about for these last 30 plus minutes, is the idea that consistency is toward a targeted goal.
Mhm.
And understanding that's proof in the pudding that consistency toward a targeted goal, and now it's launched and live, and it's awesome. So that is that proof in the pudding.
Yeah, Lisa, like I know that you mentioned to me you've been working on this project full time for something like 2.5 years, was it? Full time to launch this project.
Yeah.
So that's huge. I bet if you 2.5 years ago saw everything that you had to do over the next 2.5 years of your life, like full time on this project, you maybe would have been like, I don't know, like that's pretty difficult. But it was just the daily stacking, like day in and day out and day in and day out for 2.5 years that went from an idea to a massive launch like this.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
And it is that habit. It's that consistency for sure that has even made it possible. I mean, and it's also with that recalibration, which is really funny because I remember having a coaching session with a Tony Robbins coach. And this was early on. I had just done UPW and Business Mastery. So the idea was birthed, right? And I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. And I was supposed to get the business plan done. And I'm like, I need to have the business plan done. And I had these dates, right? And I was like, not close to finish. And then I was beating myself up because I'm like, why can't I get this done? How come I can't write it? Like, I've got the idea in my head. And it was that recalibration because the coach says, okay, so you want to get this done. Tell me, how far along are you in the process? Oh, probably about 60%. She goes, okay, how many hours has that 60% taken you to do? And I was like, oh, probably 100 hours. She goes, okay, how many more hours is it going to take you to get there? And I was like, oh, that was impossible what I was trying to do, right? So it was like learning to recalibrate helped me get past, like that was the biggest stumbling block I had in going from idea to actual execution, was that piece of like seeing it, wanting it, having to be very patient and very methodical about the steps you take to get there and doing the work like we're talking about, right? The consistency of showing up. And so it's like my daily habits of looking at what I have. I have a vision board here on my wall, like of what I want to do. And then putting that into play, like, 100% is the only way that I'm standing here today doing this. That's the only way that happened.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I love it. I love it. Amazing.
Yeah, that's like like I said, back to the gym, when you go to the gym and you have the picture of what you want to look like. And to go from what you want to look like to where you are,
Mhm.
there's all that weight that you have to carry and all those hours and all that work. It's not like, but there it is. I'm looking at it, but no, you're not, you gotta do the work. Hours.
Mhm.
And
Months.
one thing that's super powerful too, to wrap into that, and I know we're running a little bit over time, but when you just visualize something, you're giving yourself only that 50% chance, right? So going
Right.
back to the Whoop idea that I know I've talked about, it's like you have to look at what you want, get it in your bones, get like in your body, like what it is, visualize, get the outcome, like Tony talks about. But you have to immediately back that up with what the obstacle is. What is the gap? What is the thing you've got to bridge to get there? Because your brain, when you're visualizing, your brain does not know the difference from when you actually did something or not.
Yep.
Right.
So they found through studying that if you just visualize, the only thing that you're going to do is you're actually going to power down your body because your brain thinks it already freaking accomplished it.
I've done
But
that.
if you immediately stack that with and they call it mental contrasting. If you immediately stack that with the mental contrast of this is the obstacle, it will actually change the way that your brain perceives the obstacle. It will change the meaning of that, and you will actually subconsciously be able to start to overcome it. And the power of the Whoop framework that they talk about that, and that is the end of that is the P, and that is plan. So come back to the plan once again, and it's an implementation something. I can't remember the exact name. I saw a document on it actually this morning, but it's the idea of when this happens, then I will, right? And so it was the same thing as Alex, as you were talking about, of like having the things not in your area, right? Like preempting the thought process. It's like when this person irritates me, I will then do this. That's like the reactionary one, right? Or when this happens, then I will do that. When I sit down to work, I will set intention. Then I will set my intention. That's like a pre-framing it, right? So you can like do the things where you're setting it up to where you're looking at the beginning and go, okay, I'm going to remove the temptation. So when I go to the store, I'm not going to buy the candy.
Right.
That's like one plan. But by coming up with the actual plan, your subconscious mind actually takes a whole nother way of looking at it, and it brings it from the bottom up.
Mhm.
So it's no longer that push to make something happen. So if you really do like the Whoop framework, you say, wish, what do I really want? What do I really want? What's the outcome? How do I feel? Like, what does it make me feel? Get it, really envision it, like get really fantasize about it, but immediately back that up with like, what's in the way? And then what is it within me? What is it within my realm, which I can control? It can't be an outside source, right? Like, what is it within me that is stopping me? And if you can go deep on that, which I've been working on very hard recently for when I do the Whoop, I actually meet twice a week for this process. And it has been a game changer as well to help me do that. And that, once again, consistency. I said twice a week I do it, right? So it's like doing that, getting that in place. Next thing you know, when I would get distracted, now I sit down and do the things because I have the same reaction to it. So yeah, so it's super amazing. And I just wanted to wrap that up with that framework as well, because that is a super powerful one.
So what was the P part?
Plan. So it's Whoop.
Oh, wish.
WOOP. So wish,
P.
outcome, obstacle, plan.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
And there's a book about it, Rethinking Positive Thinking, by Gabrielle, and I cannot remember her last name. I'll make sure to put it in the comments.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Description
that's
of the
great.
video.
Love it. Well, on that note, we have been consistent every week, so we are wrapping up week 5, and
Yeah.
next week we'll have week 6. So let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to see next, and or what guests you would like to see come on the Empowering Growth Project next.
I love it.
Love it.
I love it.